but you're not going to own 2% at 100,000. You'll only own 1%. If the company sucks and we don't fulfill our management goals, you're going to take over percentage ownership and you're going to take over our equity. So the owners, the founders, all the sweat equity risk everything on their managerial skill set. To the point that if you had bought 10% and the company grows to the moon, you only own 2%, but you own 2% of a much bigger pie. They align the investor's interests with their personal interests with the company's interests. When I say incentive cost bias matters, my word, is this another stroke of genius. Long story longer. Coca-Cola bought them out. Coca-Cola had enough of this. Yeah, all right, you guys are growing, you're growing, you're growing. Fine, here come the big boys. Yeah.
So you're saying that they couldn't create like a low sugar product like brisk with less sugar, but didn't they do that with Coke?
Yes.
Yeah, they did that light.
Yes. They also did it with some iced teas, and they also just bought out the entire business. What I'm saying is that for iced tea specifically, to have brisk and then brisk healthy would be an acknowledgement that their first brisk wasn't good for you. That's difficult for a company, right? It creates cognitive dissonance, is the best way to say it, right? Yeah. This is how small competitors can go up against the big boys. All right. In the 1980s, per capita beer sales in North America began to stagnate and eventually decline. This is accompanied by further consolidation in the industry. A wave of cross-border mergers and acquisitions led to the creation of large multinational beer companies. These multinationals own extensive brand portfolios, began to introduce foreign brands, such as Stella Artois to North America, thereby establishing a premium segment of imported beers. We now have a new threat, import, right? Import's not the same as domestic. Such as Stella Artois, thereby establishing a premium segment of imported beers. The three largest players were AB InBev, SAB Miller, and Heineken. AB InBev was formed when the Brazil-based InBev group acquired Anheuser-Busch. Correct. SAB Miller resulted, like whoever wrote this case did their homework. I know enough about the beer industry to say this is actually real, right? Heineken was based in the Netherlands and sold across the world. The combined global market share of these three firms was 40%. That doesn't seem that high. But still, it's big boys controlling it, fine. In September of 2015, AB InBev made a takeover bid for SAB Miller. The merger was still subject to regulatory approval in several countries. If approved, it would create a global giant. Hey, was it approved? I'm seeing some head nods. Yeah, it was. So this actually went through, eh? We're talking about an oligopoly, we're talking about huge. You cannot compete against these people with marketing, with scale, with production efficiencies, right? In parallel to the increasing consolidation among the major brewers, another trend emerged in the 80s. The so-called craft beer movement. Craft beer referred to beer produced in small-scale production by independent breweries that combine traditional brewing methods with innovative recipes. I love it, right? Traditional brewing methods, we have that. Innovative recipes, we have that. We can do this. This is us now. Rejecting the perceived uniformity and bland taste of mass-produced beer, craft brews created a wide variety of styles and flavors. Craft beer was typically sold at premium prices, sometimes multiples, compared to mass-produced beer. I love it, right? We can customize it. We can customize styles, we can customize flavors, and there's margin, right? Look at how special our special beer is, right? Craft beer drinkers tended to be beer enthusiasts, seeking the highest level of quality and variety. Red flag. Well, goes the highlighter again, right? Quality, variety. You've given me two massive criteria in that history of the world. I had to read through 6 boring paragraphs of the history of the world to get to this awesomeness. Anything that I'm going to suggest is going to tie back to quality and variety. Anything that might impact quality or variety, unacceptable, right? The craft beer movement included microbreweries, as well as brew pubs and restaurant breweries. What the hell are they talking about? Does anyone actually know? What's a microbrewery?
It's like a certain size of brewery, I think.
Yeah, okay, so we have a certain size and they make the beer and they put it in kegs or what have you.
Yeah.
What the hell is a brew pub?
I think it's when they make the beer, like in a restaurant, or like in the brew pub, like close by.
What the hell's the name of the new round table? Has anybody been to that weird place? What's the vibe? Good, bad?
They're pretty chill.
Chill? Is that good or bad? Good. Okay, very good. And is that a microbrewery?
I think.
It's a brew pub, yeah.
Brew pub, cool.
I think it's a brew pub because all the, like, you can see all the.
Right. Stainless steel
Yeah,
and
it's all there.
tubes. It's very exciting to watch stainless steel in a tube. I can hardly sit down. I see it. A stainless steel tube. Wow. And restaurant breweries, which I guess that's what this more would be, right?
Yeah,
Is
well,
this
I
a brew
think,
pub or a restaurant brewery?
well, I think restaurant, it's like more, it depends upon like also what kind of food you're serving with it. It's like a restaurant would be more of like a full scale, like an actual restaurant with the brewery attached, whereas like a pub, it'd be more like smaller entrees or just, like I guess the difference would be between like how you talked about like 529 versus going like to King's Head, right? Like that's a pub versus a restaurant kind of an idea.
Completely makes sense.
Yeah.
Quality food, sit down, et cetera, et cetera. Are they currently, would you recommend them going into the restaurant brewery industry from what you know of their background so far?
No.
I know I cruised through their background pretty quickly, but they're a bunch of engineers, they're very good on the technical side. Nowhere does it talk about their executive chef, right? They have this competency, it's unbelievable, why did they create French cuisine, they do mouth-watering, Gordon Ramsay can't wait to go and review blah, blah, blah. Okay. Microbreweries were defined by the U.S. Brewers Association as producing less than 17,600 hectoliters. What the heck's a hectoliter?
Times 100.
What's that?
Times 100?
Yeah, hecto means 100, all right. So 17,600 times 100 would be the total quantity of liters. Is that what I'm reading? All right. Which was not considered a commercially viable size by multinationals. Some craft brewers were also produced by so-called contract brewers, who were contracted by craft beer entrepreneurs, or brew pubs, to brew beer in small batches using the recipes provided. Do we care? No? Anybody for yes? One yes. Woohoo! Why yes?
I think it's a business opportunity. You could do contract brewers for smaller places and
Awesome.
scale up.
Awesome. So if you're a bunch of engineering experts and you're very good at making your custom fancy, right? Everything that we're talking about is your production capacity, your production skill set. Great. Maybe fancy company over here wants to outsource it, right? Now all of a sudden we don't need to distribute. Now all of a sudden we don't need to market, right? The only people we need to market is the people who are going to be, in other words, it's business to business. Is business to business typically higher margin or lower margin than retail?
Low.
What's that?
I wanna say low.
Low which?
Low margin.
Lower margin which, to retail or to business to business?
Business to business.
I would agree with that assessment. So maybe it's a little bit lower margin, but maybe we're taking some risks out of it. Maybe we have a strategic opportunity, maybe we could do a cost-benefit analysis, and I don't know, tie it back to their own stupid criteria. All right, so I like this because it gives us an option, one thing that we could do, right? Early craft breweries in the United States included Sierra Nevada Brewing, Samuel Adams, and Bell Brewing. In addition to microbrews and brew pubs, a vibrant community of home brewers emerged. Okay, forgetting the home brewers for a moment. I kind of like where they're going with Sam Adams, Sierra Nevada. These are big companies, right? So they scaled up to be a competitor, not at the level of Anheuser-Busch, e.g. InBev, but still big, right? This is a potential route based on the history of the consolidations and the history of beer from the beginning of time. This could be where this company could end up. In other words, we could be the Sam Adams of the North. Does that make sense as an opportunity? Home brewers were beer enthusiasts who produced their own beers as a hobby. All right, has anybody ever tried a home brew? Has anybody ever tried a homemade red wine? Has anybody ever noticed that the person who made it, it's like you won't be able to believe how beautiful it is. I spent hours perfecting it. Has anybody actually ever enjoyed it? Right. The history of the world, not one has been made that's been any damn good. Fantastic. They'd be better off playing magic. This community of home brewers was not only a sophisticated market for microbreweries, but also spawned many commercial microbreweries as home brewers turned their hobby into business. Well, If a potential threat of new entrants is anybody and their dog who owns a basement and a crappy vat, that's a problem. This is what we call really low barriers to entry. I do not like companies that have really, really low barriers to entry. When I look to invest, I want Coca-Cola name, right? I want that level of branding. Good luck competing. It's so scary to competitors, there's almost no point in even trying, right? That's what I like. If you're investing in a Canadian bank, national banks, are they going to create more chartered national banks in Canada anytime soon? It's a flippin' oligopoly. They've got a lock on it. They're heavy into lobbying and influence too, right? Good luck competing. Jeff Gilbert, out of my little bank account, cannot create a new chartered bank. Okay. The craft beer phenomenon spread quickly across North America as more and more small breweries and brew pubs were open, increased competition, increased threat of new entrants, low barriers to entry. I'm getting a lot for my SWOT from this. By 2014, craft beer accounted for more than 11% of beer sales in the United States, with Canada showing a slightly lower craft beer share. Although the increased variety of flavors was perceived well in the market, the craft beer segment was also plagued by varying levels of quality. Do we care?
Mm-hmm.
The case author is giving you a red flag by the word plagued.
Well, yes, we care, because, well, that's one of our criteria, right?
Absolutely. Quality, we care, and they're giving you a massive red flag. These idiots in their basements can't make good quality stuff. We can. We have a bunch of engineers who know how to make really good beer. We hire brewmasters. Going back to the first page, remember? Moreover, some craft breweries had grown to a national scale, reaching considerable production volumes. In the US, the Boston Beer Company sold almost 12 million cases of its Sam Adams brand annually. By comparison, Heineken sold just 24 million cases of its beer in the US market. Large beer producers have all begun to react to the craft beer trend. Many of them launched their own craft beer labels. Miller Coors Blue brand, very exciting. These brands were often housed in a separate organizational division, whose ties to large breweries was not always obvious to consumers. Marketing. We can educate the people. Hey, this is actually Coors. This is actually MGD. Ours isn't. We're independent. We're run out of London. We're 3 young Canadian entrepreneurs. We have a point of differentiation, right? Also, we can talk about our limited size as a good thing for advertisement, right? We only produce small, handcrafted batch, right? We are not these huge industrial vats, right? Okay. Large brewers also acquired independent craft breweries. For example, 2011, AB InBev acquired 6 breweries in the US, including Goose Island, Blue Point, blah, blah, blah. They acquired Granville Island, Creemore, Wallabat, acquired Toronto-based Mill Street Brewery. These acquisitions were regarded with suspicion by many craft beer drinkers. Some even regarded these acquisitions as an attempt to eliminate upstart competitors. No, shit, Sherlock. Of course that's what they're doing. So large brewers could continue to sell their mass-produced beer. No kidding! I have $1 billion. These ones keep on growing. Here's an idea. Let's take them out and control the hell out of it. No kidding. Let's continue their same line and produce Coors and make money off that, and also produce Granville Island and make money off that. Why wouldn't you? And furthermore, if I was the owners of this, it's not one of their stupid criteria, but one of my criteria in life is give me exit clauses. How do I get my money out if I need to? What's my route to leave? Right? Is there employees who are interested in buying me out? Is there a whole bunch of investors? Is it the type of thing that is being consolidated? Holy crap, we can grow this and sell it. And I know that they like living in a tent down by a river somewhere, but guess what, I don't. And my thought would be, I want to grow this to a strategic point of size and then out. And then I'd want to hire a damn good lawyer to make sure the non-compete clause didn't prohibit me from getting back into the beer industry as quick as possible. So I could, I don't know, do it again. Okay, now that's real life. Back to the case. This is not necessarily a route that I would be suggesting to judges. Why don't you guys sell out to the big boys? The reason I'm not suggesting it as a real one that I would be pushing as a strategy is because there's too many hints not to do it. Real beer enthusiasts don't like it. They love the real beer enthusiasts. They love quality. These big boys are bland and uniform and not about quality. It's not the criteria. Real life? Somebody offers me $100 million for my flipping business, I'm doing jumping jacks. All right. The beer industry in Ontario. The development of the beer industry in Ontario largely mirrored the industry of the rest of North America. They are providing you with the clue as to the historical trends, right? This is a very mature market, right? But there's still opportunity even though it's in a mature market with the history of the world. They're tying it in saying our market, Canadian whatever market, copies what that history was. After a prolonged decline, the number of breweries in Ontario fell to single digits and bottomed out around 80. The craft beer movement reached the province in '84, when Jim opened Brick. Since then, the number of registered brewers has skyrocketed. Red flag. Plague, skyrocketed. Any of these kind of verbs that are, a little nutty, skyrocket, through the moon, great. So that's red flag. 176 by 2016, crap. We now have 176 flipping competitors. That is a lot of competition. The increasing popularity of craft beer in Ontario was also evident to the province's active home brewing community that brought together beer enthusiasts and amateur brewers. Niagara College, a public post-secondary institution, even began offering a 2-year brewmaster program which addressed the growing demand for skilled brewers. They're not telling you this is a business opportunity. In other words, why don't you start your own university or college teaching people how to brew beer? If the case author wanted you to do that, they would have given you 2 more paragraphs. They would have talked about the education industry. Instead, they're beating you over the head with, this is growing, and growing fast, but anything that's growing that fast has the looks of a bubble and is not necessarily sustainable long term. Make sense? Production and sale of alcoholic beverages, including beer, were highly regulated in Ontario. Okay, so we have government regulation. We have that as a potential SWAT and Brian way of talking, right? And Porter's Five Horses too, tied in. Bottled and canned beer together accounted for 90% of beer sales. So, for those that were thinking, well, maybe we should only get into our kegs, right? Be a microbrewery and produce our kegs. You're missing out on a potential 90% of all beer sales by not doing beers or bottles, even with that lower margin. Remember that earlier case fact, right? So on my notes, as I'm going through under each option, right? One of them being, do we do kegs, micro kegs, or whatever the hell they quarter kegs, whatever the hell they call them, or do we do cans, or do we do bottles? That fact would go under that, right? While draft beer accounted for less than 10%. Brewers were allowed to sell directly to consumers from their brewing facility. Okay, what the hell are you saying here? Brewers are allowed to sell your beer directly to consumers from your brewing facility. Provincial law restricted retail sales to 651 provincial-owned liquor stores, which operated under the Liquor Control Board of Ontario, and to 448 branches of the beer store. Holy shit. Okay, so we can produce and sell as much beer as we want if we have our own brewing facility, right? Forget case for a moment. What game can we play? What do you define as a brewing facility, and under what terms do you define it as a brewing facility? Is there a certain quantity of beer that you must produce, right? If so, what is that minimum quantity? Maybe I want to have a microbrewery in the back of each and every one of these and have just a huge flippin' retail shop, right? If I'm allowed to open a retail store and compete against the LCBO, hipsters won't like LCBO. Does that make sense? It's not the right vibe, it's not independent. You don't have people with awkward weird goatees and long mustaches. They want to see the long mustaches. The LCBO won't have the long mustache people. You can have a really long mustache, open your crappy retail store, have your BS behind the scenes microbrewery or whatever to meet some sort of law, right? And sell it. Does that kind of make sense? We're not going to be able to change the law, but we can play by the rules of the law and suggest a strategy that goes intact with that. If we are really going for volume, we need these boys, right? We need the LCBO, we need the 448, we need the 651, right? 1,000 different retail outlets. We're not gonna be able to scale up to 1,000 retail outlets anytime soon. Does that make sense? This is a major restriction that I care about deeply. In flippin' Manitoba, if you were to go on Easter Sunday to a bar, your bill must be 50% food and 50% booze. It is not allowed to be 51% booze, 49% food on that given Sunday. It can be on the next Tuesday with no problems. What the hell is the government doing? I don't know, but they're very concerned with how much food you're eating while you're drinking on certain days of the year. If you ever really get into owning a restaurant, right? Well, what is the definition of a lounge? What is the definition of a restaurant? What percentage food must you sell? Oh my dear God. The regs, right? Are you allowed to open a wine store? A privately held wine store in Manitoba? Are you allowed to sell privately vodka in Manitoba? No. If you sell a bottle of red wine that the Manitoba Liquor Commission sells, how much can you sell it for? Flippin' Manitoba Liquors tells you how much you have to sell it for. Like, we have this in Manitoba, and it's bonkerland. If you are a restaurant and you're mass buying beer, you're King's Head, right? And you want to go buy some Heineken, who do you have to buy it from? Right, you must buy it from Manitoba Liquor Lotteries Commission. Are you allowed to get a reduction because you're buying in bulk? No. That is the industry in Manitoba. To the point that there's a restaurant association who literally hires full-time one individual. All they do all day is lobby the government saying, can we get a discount now? can we anything? Can you give us 1% we're both buying? Come on, anything. The beer store was a joint venture between Molson, Sleeman, and Labatt. Great! Flippin' beer store, a monopoly, government controlled, government regulated, but owned by the big boys again. I hate it. Although it was originally founded as a consortium, the international consolidation transferred the ultimate ownership to 3 large foreign breweries. So it's not even domestically owned now. AB InBev, Molson Coors, and Sapporo out of Japan. The beer store had a monopoly on selling beer in packages of more than 6 bottles or cans. But at 5 bottles, they're good to go. 5 bottles, that's no problem. 6, you're screwed. Never mind a 2-4, my God, that'll blow their minds. Although the beer store sold beer made by other product producers in return for a handling fee, critics accuse the store of favoring their owners' brands, thus making it harder for rival brewers, including craft brewers, to sell their product. In response, the beer store announced measures to provide more shelf space for Ontario craft beers and floated plans to offer ownership stakes to all Ontario-based breweries. Do we have an opportunity here? Is this a potential route that they can go down? Is it still craft? Can we still control quality? Can we still have a wide variety? Going back to our criteria? Potentially, sure. The effects of these measures were not yet clear in early 2016. Great, we need to measure it, make sure that we monitor it accurately, right? We need to add value, right, for this case. I would want to be doing my due diligence on this opportunity. It's 1,000 retail locations, or 600, oh, sorry, 400 for the beer store, right? I want to get into 448. I want my beer on that shelf, right? That's just huge. So I want to be on top of this. Because I know this, if you're talking about scalability, and if you're talking about mass consolidation, you're talking about 167 competitors. It's going to end up being a small number that survive and survive big. The bottom will all float away. Is the newspaper industry a good industry? If I were to give you $100,000 and tell you you have to invest right now, is the first thing that you're thinking about, how do I get my money into the newspaper industry right away? Was it a good industry?
Yes.
For how many years? Over 100, right? This is a long-term, very good industry. It's a very interesting industry to study. Because under strategy, all you need is one basic concept to understand. Biggest is going to win. In every flipping major city, one of the dominant players grows to the top, and they end up having more editorial, more news coverage, more advertisements in it, more money in it, better coverage in this self-perpetuating cycle. Warren Buffett, everybody's heard of him, bought Buffalo News. Contain your excitement, people. He bought Buffalo News. He bought Buffalo News, and there was two competitors. There was another competitor in Buffalo. And what did Warren Buffett do? He dumped money after money after money till that grew to dominate. Then he rode out that monopoly for 25 years, sucking back dividends. Right? He knew the biggest is going to win, and all you need to do is become the biggest or buy the biggest, and then you're going to win in that industry. A very simple lesson that could be applicable in many different industries. Okay, back to this. Another change to retail beer sales came into effect in December 2015. For the first time, a limited number of grocery stores received licenses to sell beer. Do we care? Well, all of a sudden, this isn't foreign Sapporo owned, right? Or maybe we're gonna give you a little spot at the back right by the can, right? Good luck to you, craft breweries, right? Where there's not gonna be any fancy t-shirts, and we're not gonna be pushing it, and you're not gonna get triple the air miles, and we're not gonna, right? But maybe at your local grocery store, right? And it doesn't say it, but I'll go there. Maybe it's someplace like Whole Foods, right? Whole Foods doesn't want to carry Coors. They maybe want to carry Fork River Specialty Craft Brew, right? Maybe we could align our brand with a brand of retail that actually makes some sense, right? What's the cheapest one in Toronto? What's big? Loblaws. What's the cheap soup grocery store? No Thrills. No Thrills, right? That's the cheap one in Toronto, in Ontario. Doesn't necessarily align with craft beer, right? Premium, high-end, fancy, watermelon flavored BS beer, right? Okay. Small Ontario breweries with annual productions of less than 50,000 hectares benefited from a reduced provincial beer tax rate. How many hectoliters do we produce? I don't know yet, but I know this. If there's a case fact that's going to tell me what it is, I'm going to be highlighting it. Do you use PowerPoint when you present? I love PowerPoint. It changes everything. It makes it so exciting. Oh my God, I hate PowerPoint. It would warrant a slide, right? So, and we'll see why in a sec. 26.7 cents per liter compared to 63.2 cents. Holy crap. This is, I mean, forget math. This is more than double, right? Very simple here, right? That's a huge amount, right, of difference. If I am in an industry and I'm taxed at 26%, and you're in an industry and you're taxed at 63%, oh, you better be huge, right? Like that is a significant advantage. For draft beer, and 29.6% per liter compared to 79.6 for bottled and canned beer. Like huge, just huge differential. As well as special provincial tax credit established in 2007. We don't have a dollar amount, but holy crap. Now we have reduced tax rates and a credit. And it's all if we have hectoliters, right? Now let's turn off our case brain for a moment and go back to real brain. Pretending for a moment that I was at 45,000 hectoliters. The next meeting I'd be housing would be with my lawyer. Very good. Hi, I'm close to this 50,000 hectoliters. I want to make sure that I take advantage of this small brewery advantage. How can I create a legal structure that still be in compliance with this, but still have the advantage tax rate? Right? Oh, you need to sell your share in this company. You need to create a completely separate company. Great. Can we, as the three business people, figure out a way to do this? Right? Even if it has to be at a completely new label and it's not allowed to be aligned. Even if CRE is going to really get into your business. All right, we'll make sure that it's not aligned. We still have the skill set. We have over 4 years doing this, right? Now, that's real. Back to this case for a moment here. I care deeply about knowing where we're at in terms of this hectoliters. Because if we're close to this 50,000, it's going to make us very, very difficult to compete. We're going to have a huge tax burden. It's going to go through the roof, right? And it's going to affect our ability to scale. Many of Ontario brewers were organized in an industry association called the Ontario Craft Brewers, founded in 2003. In addition to promoting the sale and consumption of blah, they have this beautiful statement. You have to produce less than 400,000 hectoliters annually, and you need to be independently owned. Well, they meet those criteria. We could join them. And that's more of a lobbying type thing that could help compete against the oligopoly. Let's, because we're already at 7:45, see, I don't shut up, it's a problem. You should ask my wife about it. And let's skip to ongoing challenges. Agreed? Time? Time. We're agreed. Good. By early 16, Fork River team have reached some notable milestones. They increased brew capacity from 37 barrels. So we know 1 barrel is equal to 117 liters. We take 37 times 117, and then they increased it to 187. So we take 187 barrels, we times that by 117, and we compare that to the amount of hectoliters. We're still well clear of it. Okay? Expanded in-house retail operations. I love this. You have expanded in-house retail operations, and I don't know if it's in this case fact, but eventually we're going to get to it, or it was before. It's really profitable. It's good. There's a lot of demand inside the store. Awesome. You control it. You have the retail locations, and you're not even in a good location yet, right? You're in a crappy, low-rise industrial complex, and people love your stuff so much they're willing to drive out and pay for it. First of all, people love that kind of crap. I wouldn't be in such a hurry to change that in real life. People love a special destination. This is where I go to get my beer, right? I go into this weird industrial, right? It's off Inkster, it's exciting. For this case though, I would be talking about, can we get a better strategic old castle, right? And a 13th label added to its family of beers. Good, variety. There's no immediate sign that Fork River growth trajectory was in peril. There are issues. Every time that there's an issue, I'm going to red flag it. I know I'm going to have to address it somewhere. They were excited by the renaissance of small breweries, increasing craft, providing drinkers with a range of choices. However, they're wondering about the ongoing changes in the craft beer segment. Among craft beers, there's sort of friendly competition. People know each other, they help each other out, they love each other, they hug one another. I can't wait, they're all married, they love each other, it's so beautiful. The seeing all these news breweries set up, I wonder if competition will continue to be so friendly and hug each other every single 5 seconds. No. Guess what? It's going to become ruthless, it's going to copy the US market, there's going to be big boys, they're going to come in and create oligopolies. This is going to be what's going to happen. Get your heads out of your entrepreneurial friendly, you're in your basement having fun, and become sophisticated business people. The expansion of the craft beer industry also led to a proliferation of new beers. With a growing number of exotic names and unusual flavors, and sometimes questionable quality, we are going to differentiate ourselves based on quality because we have these engineers and brewmasters. Fork River founders were concerned. There might be craft beer fatigue. Great, how do we deal with craft beer fatigue? Well, we had 1 or 2 staple items that were really, really good, with consistent quality, that were always there, and they were known as gateway beers, or whatever the hell term they used before. We're going to stick with those, right? We're going to market those first, right? To help prevent this beer fatigue. But we're still going to be cognizant of the industry changes. The growth in the new craft beers would slow down, and the consumers would focus more on high quality. Great. So further driving home our strategy. They're not worried about product quality and their ability to deliver, but questions the new type of beers, new packaging, and even non-beer alternatives emerged. Another potential thing, non-beer alternatives, right? There's some beer with fruit, hops, higher alcohol content. Read explained. Oh, there's the gateway. Beer, it's richer, blah, blah, blah. However, brewing test is not just a hobby. While we are not in this for the money, oh my God. I have a friend who teaches at U of W who's a communist. He would love this. We all need to earn our living now from the business. Well, at least there's some flipping recognition. At least there's some business acumen. Good. The question is, how should we move forward? You need a new strategic plan. Your old model of just growing and flying by the seat of your plans, we need to be strategic. We need to do a full SWOT and brine from that. We need to compare it to your criteria. We need to make value-added recommendations. Besides deciding on the beer portfolio strategy in terms of non-beer alternatives, in terms of higher alcohol, in terms of quantity, all that stuff, the team was considering its packaging choices. Partly to save costs and partly to keep customers' attention. They have shifted to selling their beer in cans rather than bottles. And we have 10 minutes to go, and we're going to have a debate now, but let's just go into when you're presented this kind of BS in a case. You have issue. Do we do cans or do we do bottles? Alternative number 1, cans, pro, con. Alternative number 2, bottles, pro, can, pro, con. Tie back to any sort of criteria, quality, variety, blah, blah, blah. Conclude, recommend. Can we agree on that? Can we agree that that's the best way to read a whole bunch of points on any judge's scoring card. All right, it is 7:48. I say that I stop now, and we have a little bit of a chat. 10 minutes, give or take, till 8 roughly. Questions? Anybody think I'm way off my rocker on this? Yeah.
I'm just concerned about how we got so nitpicky about the modest comment which they made about that they want to have a modest living. But don't we understand that they're still in their first year of their business,
40 here, yeah.
right? In 2013 or in 2013, they were in their first year of
Right.
business. And no one has that concrete plan of actually making money. First, we
Right.
all want to establish in the market,
Right.
and we just want to break even. So that's the usual business plan. So why are we so particular about them focusing on a modest living?
I'm not. It would be a huge point to me.
Okay.
I am much more concerned with any of the other issues that I mentioned. Do we go into the restaurants? Are we going to be a microbrewery, right? Are we close to our tax exemption? I am much more concerned with, do we make aluminum cans? I'm much more concerned with something that's not in this case at all, or barely in this case, branding. Much more concerned. Because if I could get the consumer to look at my product and go, I know this, I trust this, it's always good, right? The differentiation could be huge. Yeah, $1 more a bottle, right? It said in the case that they initially thought they really want to be in restaurants, right? And they want to be on draft and on pulls because that's so cool and all that stuff, but then they discovered it's actually way harder. You have to go down there, you have to develop a relationship with each and every flippin' restaurant, right? You have to give them a whole bunch of free swag and the free pulls and all this fancy stuff. And it did say it in the case, but I'll say it, I don't trust restaurants of quality, right? So they pour and they say this is a, right, Forked River, and it tastes like crap because it's not properly cleaned, right? It's not properly at the right proper temperature. There's a fair bit of science to get that from the keg correctly out. But park that issue even for another moment. I care much more about that because we could talk about distribution strategies, right? It's cheaper to get into the LCBOs. It's easier, right? It's a government thing, sign some forms and you're in. So that cost of that is lower, and that meets the scalability criteria, which I told you going back was this is when I thought that they were bright, and this is where Jeff Gilbert starts to care. If you told me I had to finance this company, I had to invest in this company, yeah, okay, you guys don't want to pull out your money yet, whatever. Scalability, right? What's your niche? What's your point of differentiation? What are you doing well, right? That's where I care, much more so than that. But good point. In other words, if you have 10 slides, maybe it makes it on half of one, maybe it's 1 point, maybe.
Can I ask another question?
Please, more.
So you mentioned something about the payroll expenses and the financial statements. So let's say we get a case in JDC
Yeah,
and the numbers don't really make sense.
yes.
In that case, do you recommend us asking, like, questioning the judges in the actual presentation about those numbers, or do you just suggest us to just ignore those and continue with whatever we have?
I'm not going to answer the question directly. I have not been a JDC West judge besides a volunteer judge here for 1 or 2 things. So I hesitate to give you a definitive answer on that.
Okay.
In my world, when I draft cases, if I give you a set of numbers and the numbers contain significant red flags, you better flip and address it.
Okay.
I mean, sorry, I should go by my legacy for a moment. I'm a chartered accountant and then be now a CPA, teach with CPA, teach it here, and I work at the Office of the Auditor General. I care about the numbers, right? If the numbers are wrong, right? Yeah, that's a massive issue to me. I was once auditing an entity. I always have to talk about auditing at least once. I was auditing an entity, and the entity had literally hundreds of millions, close to $1 billion in assets, specifically real estate holdings. The controller of the company said to me, "What's an accrual?" Those of you that don't know what audit risk is, that's it in a nutshell. Jeez. Right? I mean, yeah. And so, tying in, so if you get a set of statements, what I'm looking for is trends, what I'm looking for is the biggest possible number, and then what I'm always looking to do is tie back to case facts. You saw me do it with payroll as a micro example. You see me doing it here almost automatically. Increase, increase, increase. What is the biggest revenue source? Beer, 555,000. It pales in comparison to everything else. I would not be spending 6 bloody slides talking about deposits. It's just not big enough. Largest expense, production inventory, and the second largest being payroll, which, as you know, doesn't make any sense. How to handle that in JDC, I'll leave to your confident hands to discuss. More? Please.
So I guess, so now that we've kind of gone through and gotten all the information, what would be kind of your tactic for presenting kind of your solution?
Table of contents, history, trends, SWOT, because the way that the case is worded, and then I'd be into strat plan.
Okay.
So strat plan, not presented as a final strat plan, not this is the answer, could do this, criteria, conclude,
Okay.
repeat, for the 4 or 5 major issues. If you have 25 issues, like there's no case that's this long, I hope, for JDC, is there?
No,
Isn't
that's,
it 10 pages?
that's pretty standard. It might
Oh
be
my
even
God.
a little longer.
Yeah.
How long do you have?
3-hour resolution,
And how long do you have to talk?
18 to 20 minutes.
So for 20 minutes, you're not gonna be able to talk about every single issue in this case. Right. So you must rank. Which goes back to you, eh? Would you be spending that much? Hell no, right? Do we wanna go into grocery stores? This is a change in distribution. This is a marketing question. This is classic product, price, place, promotion, right? This is classic, right? Strategy. Flipping grocery stores. Well, we can produce a huge volume. There's a lot of grocery stores, if we're allowed to, right? Or do we use the already existing ones who might mistreat us? Like, this is begging for that kind of quantitative / qualitative analysis. That's where I would go.
When it comes to expanding beyond Ontario,
Yeah.
what would you say? What would you?
In real world or this?
Well, I guess real world.
Real world, I'd be very interested. Why are we only talking Ontario?
But what about for this then?
They don't mention really across Canada. They don't start talking about different provinces. Not enough red flags in the case that hinting that you go there. You can talk about it once, but you don't go there hard.
Okay, so because they didn't really discuss it, then it's not.
If you knew, for example, in your own head, that Ontario and Manitoba have a provincial agreement such that you're allowed to distribute alcohol between the two of them, nobody cares. It's not in the case. Judges don't know that you know that, but does know that that's an actual fact. You could be the biggest genius in the entire world. You could be the CEO of AG InBev, and you could probably still do better on this case than them. Make sense?
Yeah.
I.e., you play their game.
Well, sort of my next question is, if you have some brilliant idea that's much better than the suggestions that they're giving, because they're not business people, they're engineers and they're whatever, and they give you some kind of lowball crappy ideas, how important is it to stay in line with everything the case is talking about, and sticking with what the, the ideas they're trying to shove in there, if you've got an idea that makes more sense and actually really could be feasible?
I'm gonna answer the question multifold. If you discover an underlying theme in the case that's not presented by the case author, you're starting to hit a home run. It doesn't happen, but if I were to talk about a board of directors and management, and then nobody's really accountable to anybody, like some red flags, and then you tie in governance, this big overarching accountability, right, decision making, right? If you were to do that, check mark. That's a management tool, right? That's a management speak that could add a ton of value. If you're way out over here, right, and you have this brilliant suggestion that's not even in the case in the remotest, you're going to start getting into selling whiskey, right? Nowhere in the case does it talk about whiskey. Nowhere in this case does it talk about whiskey margins. Nowhere, but you happen to know a crap. You worked at whatever it was, 5-star Crown Royal, blah, blah, blah. Good on you, irrelevant. Real life matters greatly. You heard me going off on the history of Honest Tea Company. Warren Buffett Not gonna go there.
Even if it like completely solves their problem though, like what if their problem is they have a problem and the solution that you come up with isn't one that they're, because sometimes they say, like you're supposed to have 3 alternatives, that's sort of the general skeleton of how we usually do cases. And they'll give 2 ideas and one might be terrible and one might be okay, but if you come up with a 3rd idea that solves the problem that they're having, that is related to what they're doing, but it's not one of the,
I'm liking that better. I'm not liking left field. So they say, you could distribute it A, B, and you come up with a distribution model C. Cool.
okay.
It's not that far off, it's not so crazy. It reminds me of like in actual commerce, if you were to do that, right? And the professor wrote the case, you're running a risk with their game of the case, right?
I just wonder though, like you wanna differentiate yourself because these judges are gonna see 10 of like the, for all intents and purposes, exact same presentation.
Totally.
And it's gonna get boring, so if you can tie in something that you've thought of that's.
Well, you heard me say it, I would be talking about branding.
Yeah.
The case doesn't really talk about branding. I would be talking about labels, a fair bit. So this isn't a case that went down there, I'm going there. That's where I think maybe it's a point of differentiation, maybe I can add some value, so I think it's your point.
Mhm.
That I'm comfortable with, it's tied in enough. Question?
Right, so
I was just going to add on to what you were saying, Jeff,
Please.
explaining to your question. So the way that we've always been taught is that rather than taking the case as like kind of like a test, whereas there's going to be like a right or wrong answer, you want to treat it as a piece of or a package of information. And so whatever suggestion you're putting forward, whether it is something that has been suggested like in what you've read, or it is something that you've thought of based on the information that you're given, it's going to depend on the case. But if you can go that route and take pieces and formulate something completely new, that's essentially the route you might want to take. But it's going to depend on the case. So there won't be one universal way to like answer that question.
So basically, as long as you can support
Exactly.
your idea,
Exactly.
you can run with it, kind of a
Exactly.
thing. Okay, makes sense.
More? This was fun. Thanks. I'll come hang out. If you want to chat about beer, or you want book recommendations.
I actually wish I grabbed beer now.
Yeah, I'm craving for beer.
Yeah,
I don't know
me
why.
too. There is not beer in here, and this is the only bag they have.
I know, I
It
don't love
came
it.
with pink tissue paper, and I decided to nix that, but this is for you
Thank
to
you so
show your
much.
appreciation. I remember being at the session last year, or watching it, and it was incredibly helpful. I remember being in cases, and there were so many things that we remembered and just chatted about from the session. So I saw a lot of you guys taking notes, which was really great to see. And yeah, thank you. We really appreciate it.
Pleasure. Anytime. Thanks. Half an hour too long. I don't shut up. It's fine.
It's a bottle of wine.
Of course it is.
It's a really good wine.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's what I had on the behind.
Have you ever looked back? That's right.
Yes.
Studying all week?
In the local is
And you guys are. We need to.
What's that? What do you make
Yeah.